Good morning and welcome back to Cookery on Lockdown. If you haven't joined us already, welcome to our cookery lessons sessions. If you've sent pictures in of previous dishes, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. They do all look great. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be doing some crumpets. Now I've been struggling to get hold of crumpets in the shops, so I thought I'll have a look for a recipe and make my own, because they're a little bit of a favourite of mine really. I miss them, a bit of butter or something for breakfast, just a little snack, so I do miss them, so struggling to get them in shops, so I thought we'd make our own. Relatively easy to make as well, don't take too much time, and I think you'll be surprised with the results. Now I had a little bit of look around on the internet for a good recipe, and I found Mr. Warburton's recipe. So we've actually got Warburton's own crumpet recipe. They've put it on the internet for, obviously, because they've been struggling to fill the shelves quickly, I think. So we're going to do Mr. Warburton's crumpet recipe, and I have tried them out before, and I must say they are pretty good. So, and I was quite impressed how well they come out. So we'll go through the ingredients, the equipment needed, and then I'll take you through the tutorial, show you how to make them. Again, really simple to make. I think you find them quite easy to make, and I think you enjoy them afterwards. So remember, if you want the recipe, if you contact our hubs, look on the Facebook page, contact the hubs with details, we can send you the recipe. We do ask if you could give some feedback as well, maybe send a picture in of your finished product, and then I'll try and give you some feedback back if we do get those. So enjoy the video, enjoy the cookery tutorial, and please send in your photos. Okay, so we're going to go through the recipe now. We're going to need 6 ingredients, and it should all be store cupboard ingredients, so hopefully we'll have these in. Like I said, really simple recipe. So we're going to go with some plain flour. Okay, so you'll want 200 grams. I'm actually timing my recipe by 4, because when I made these last time, I had a little bit of a practice run. I took some round to my parents and left them on the doorstep, and again for the neighbours as well. They really enjoyed them, and so we're going to make timing my recipe by 4. Okay, so you want 200 grams of plain flour. We are going to use some water. So you'll want 200 grams of water, just your tap water. Half teaspoon of table salt, half teaspoon of caster sugar, a teaspoon of your dried yeast. I've got a tin here. You can buy them in little sachets. So about 7 gram sachets. They're usually about teaspoons, so that should be fine. But just a teaspoon of dried yeast. And you'll want a teaspoon of baking powder as well. Okay, so really simple ingredients. Hopefully you'll have them. If you're struggling to get flour at the shop, yeast at your shop, maybe go down to your local bakery. I think I've mentioned this on one of my other videos, tutorials. Go down to your local bakery, because you can't always get flour in shops, because everybody seems to be buying flour to do some baking and cooking at home. It is a struggle, so go down to your local bakery, and sometimes they're selling them. I know my local bakery is, so I've got quite a lot of flour and that for them, because I've been struggling to get it in shops. Do try that. So that's the ingredients, and we'll be going through your equipment next. So equipment needed as well. Hopefully you should have most of this equipment in your kitchen. Nothing really unusual that we'll be using. So for the mixing, obviously we'll be using a bowl, a sieve to sieve the flour through. We'll be whisking the mixture up because we're making it into a batter, so you will need a whisk. Just a teaspoon, just to measure your salt, your baking powder, that sort of thing. You're going to need obviously a set of scales. So just a set of scales. A jug for your water. For the cooking, we are going to need a ladle, because we're going to have to ladle the batter out. Again, you can put it in a jug and pour it. You might find that easier. But but I generally use a ladle because I can portion control it, so I can sort of make sure I've got the right amount of mixture in the ladle. Just a non-stick frying pan, your stove top. You'll need like a fish slice, an egg slice, just to get them out, and you might need to flip them. Hopefully you won't need to flip them, they should cook from the bottom. You don't generally need to flip them, but occasionally if it's still a bit soft on top, but we'll explain that through the tutorial, you'll need to possibly flip them, but just to lift them out of the pan really we need a slice. And to get the shape of the crumpet you're going to need like a pastry cutter. No, for some reason my big pastry cutter's gone, and I do like my crumpets a little bit bigger, so if you haven't got a pastry cutter, not everybody does, don't worry, we can improvise. So you can use a baked bean tin. Okay, so all I've done is take the top and the bottom off, and then you can pour your mixture in and you'll get the round shape of the crumpet. So if you ain't got any pastry cutters, don't worry about it, just use a baked bean tin, give it a good clean, make sure it's nice and dry, and it works brilliantly, just as well. I use them because I like mine a little bit bigger. And these are the bigger size tins, not your standard bean tin, a little bit bigger, which I think I've got some mango pulp out of this, so you can use those as well. Okay, but you can use a standard size baked bean tin if you wanted to. So not much equipment needed. Your stove top as well, dry tea towel, just obviously for your pan handles, that sort of thing, because it can get hot. And then I just put mine on a chopping board. Once they're baked, on a chopping board or on a tray with some greaseproof on. So really limited equipment needed, easy ingredients. And now we'll take you through to the tutorial and I'll show you how to cook them. So we're going to do the demonstration now for the cooking. My son Harry is going to help me. Say hello, Harry.
Hello.
Okay, so like I say, it's really easy, so you should be able to get your children involved, get them doing this. Obviously when they'll come to the cooking we might need to help them out a little bit because obviously it's a hot stove. Okay, so first part of the recipe and the method, we are going to sieve our flour into a bowl. So we're going to grab our sieve, Harry, and we're going to sieve the flour into the bowl, okay? So do you want to use our spoon and gently sieve? Do you want me to add it to? Okay, there we go. So just give it a tap. So remember how to tap it, and that's it. So we're going to just tap the flour through, and this just helps get rid of any unwanted bits in the flour if there is any, and it also makes the flour a little bit lighter, and we want the mixture to be quite light. So remember, that's it, tap it like that. So a good tap.
Can I also shake it?
Shake it, yeah.
And put it up and down, but it won't work.
Okay, that's it. So tap the side like that. That's it.
And the whole layer goes down.
So we're doing this just to get some air into it, and it makes the flour nice and light.
And to get the bad bits out.
And to get the bad bits out. Well done, Harry. Okay.
But hold on.
Okay, so we're just going to sieve that in, and that's going to make the flour nice and light.
It looks like a volcano.
Okay. So we've got a ramekin of yeast here. We're just going to pop a little bit of the water that we've measured out in the jug, Harry. So you want 200 millilitres of water. No, into the yeast, and we're going to add just a little bit into our yeast. That's enough. Okay, and then give it a little bit of a stir with your teaspoon.
No, it makes it smell weird.
Okay, just give it a good stir, and we're just going to leave that to sit for a moment.
You just wait till it gets sticky.
That's it. Now just put it to one side. And you can leave the teaspoon in there, that's fine. Just make sure we've got to the...
Oh, sticky.
It is a bit gooey, but that's fine.
It's hard.
Just going to pop a little bit more water in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So that we're just going to leave that on the side, and it just helps to start the yeast reacting, and it'll start to.
Just went down the phone.
That's okay. Okay.
Looks
So
like,
put that to one side.
looks a bit
Okay,
like.
so we're going to go back to the flour now, and Harry's going to pour all the water into the flour,
Looks a bit
nice
like,
and carefully.
looks a bit like peanut butter.
Mhm.
I don't like peanut
Pour it all in,
butter.
and then you want the salt. So you're going to grab the salt in that ramekin there,
This
Harry.
one? Which
Yep.
one's it?
That's salt.
Pour it in.
Yep. So pour that in. Okay, and then we're going to whisk this. So you need to just start off gently to make sure we get it all mixed in. That's it. So a good whisk. Make sure we get to the bottom and to the around the sides.
I already starting to
Okay.
soak in so the water gets less and then it goes down a bit so you can't spill it as much.
Okay. So once we start getting that mixed in, we need to be a bit more vigorous. That's it. So go a bit quicker.
I can't go quicker than this.
I'll take over. That's it. So really give this a good whisk. So you need to do this for about 5 minutes. So you're going to get some muscles going in your arm.
Yeah.
Okay. So 5 minutes whisking, gets all the flour incorporated into the water, knocks out all the lumps of the flour, gets a little bit of air in there, so it makes the mixture nice and light as well.
I'm just waiting for that bit to cover up.
Give it a good whisk. Go on. Keep it going.
There.
Yeah. Keep it going. That's it. So you need to do this for about 5 minutes.
It looks like the thing on banana when you like the banana bread.
Would you like me to have a quick go?
Yes.
Okay. So really give it a good whisk.
How can you do that? Dad. No, my tongue.
Try not to get it everywhere.
Yeah, my tongue shut.
Oh dear. Okay, so give it a good whisk. Make sure you get down to the corners of the bowls, round to the sides. And we're just going to whisk that really well for 5 minutes. You're going to take over again?
Yeah.
Go on then.
It
Real
might be
good
a
whisk.
bit easier now. That's easier now, a bit quicker.
Yeah. So we're knocking all the lumps out, getting a little bit of air in.
Oh, I got some on my phone.
That's fine. You can wash your hands afterwards. Give it a good whisk.
There we go, I wiped it off.
Okay, so we've been whisking this now for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Is your arm aching?
A bit,
A bit, yeah, because you've been a lot. Oh well, your muscle's bigger.
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay, so we've been whisking this now for about 5 minutes. So what we're going to do next, we're going to add our sugar. We're going to add our sugar, Harry.
Sugar, this
Yeah,
one.
that's the one. Yeah. So pop that in. Our baking powder. Okay, and then we're going to put our yeast in as well. So our yeast has started to bubble up a little bit. Just show the camera this bubbling. Okay, that's it. So just tilt it slightly. So there's a few little bubbles on there.
Oh, it went
That's
up.
the yeast reacting,
Sharp.
starting to. So scoop that in, yeah. So scoop all the bits in. It's a bit like a paste now. So I need to get all
I
that in.
think there's a... It looks so much like peanut butter. I feel
It doesn't
like
really look like peanut butter.
It does a bit.
Okay, so just make sure we get all around the edges, okay? So in the little nooks and crannies, just scoop that out. Okay?
And then I got mixed this in.
Now the yeast and the baking powder are going to help get some air and help it rise. So when we cook them, that's how you get the little bubbles in your crumpets with the yeast and the baking powder. They give off carbon dioxide bubbles, and it rises, and then it just sort of pops on the top, and you've got those little air bubbles in there.
Should I
Okay.
mix it in?
Yeah, so give that a good mix in.
I like that smell when you like mix like flour and water together, and the smell that it makes. It smells nice.
Yeah.
I can't smell it right now though. Oh, I can smell it. No, that's strong. There's a lot of flour and water.
It is nice to smell when you're making breads. Because a crumpet is a type of bread. I know it's not like your usual dough, it's more of a batter, and we cook it slightly different, but it is a bread product. It's made with your flour, your yeast and your water, just different quantities. Okay, so that's it. Get all those little lumps of baking powder out, that's it. Give it a really good whisk. For about 30 seconds, you want to give it a whisk. Daddy, did you give it a quick whisk?
That's
You okay? Yeah? Okay, so once that's whisked, we're going to cover it with cling film, and then we are going to just leave it to sort of grow. It's going to maybe double in size, the mixture, get a little bit lighter.
It looks satisfying when you
So you could either put a damp tea towel over it. I like to put cling film over it. I think it keeps it a bit more sealed, stops any of the air
this looks
escaping.
But this is
And you want to put it in a warm. You want to put it in a warm place. Now today it's really sunny outside, so I'm going to pop it outside on my garden table just for about half an hour to an hour. So it should double in size quite quickly.
What if the flies get into it?
But I'm going to cover it with cling film, so the flies won't get into it. So yeah, make sure you cover it with cling film,
Or something.
and it'll stop any. If you're going to put it outside in the warm sun, obviously if you've got an airing cupboard,
Yes.
an airing cupboard is a good idea, or on the windowsill. If your sun's coming through the window, it'll get quite hot as well, and it'll help it. We need warmth for the yeast to grow, so cover that up with cling film, and then we're going to leave that to rest for about 30 minutes. So nice and tight, and that should double in size. So make sure you've got an appropriate size bowl. If it's too small, obviously it could overspill, so just be careful with the size of bowl that you use. Make sure it's a good size to allow for growth. So the mix has been resting for about 30 to 45 minutes, so you can see all the air bubbles in it, and it's risen up quite a lot. Okay, so we're going to heat our pan now as well, and then we're going to start cooking the crumpets off. Okay, so just before we start, we're going to give this just a gentle stir with a ladle. Please, Harry.
Sticky.
Just give it a little gentle stir.
It's a bit thick.
So it's a nice thick batter, plenty of air into it. Don't mix it too hard, because we don't want to knock all the air out of it. So just a gentle mix, because it will separate. Flour still might sink to the bottom, so just a gentle stir. Okay, so you want to get your pan to a medium to high heat, get it nice and warm. We want them to be cooked straight away when we put them in. So we're going to need to get your cutter or your tin and just grease it. So you want to grease the bottom. So I've got some spray oil here, and I'm going to just lightly grease. So you could brush it with oil, dip it in a tub of oil. You don't need to do it really once, and it should keep it nice and greased. Okay, so you can pop that into your pan, and then we're going to pop it into the centre. Okay, so we're going to get nice and hot, so you should feel the heat start to come off. A little bit of oil in your pan. You don't want a lot, because we don't want the crumpets to be greasy. As long as they're just a tiny. I like spray oils because they spread some oil out, and there's not a lot of oil in there, so they won't become too greasy. So we're just going to wait for that to heat up, and then we will start to spoon our mixture in. Okay, so Harry's got a ladle, and he's not. Our ladle is just about the right size, so you don't want to put too much in, because it will rise up when it cooks. So he's just going to pop it into the middle of the can, and he's going to pour it in. Right, try not to get to the sides, that's it. That's it. You can put your ladle back in. Okay, that's fine. And he's going to allow this to cook now. It's probably going to take 4 to 5 minutes. So it'll cook from the bottom, and it'll slowly cook all the way through. So the air bubbles will sort of come up, and that's why you get those little holes in the crumpet. The bubbles are coming up, popping at the surface as they release the carbon dioxide gas, and that's why you get those little holes in the top. So we're just going to leave that in there for 4 to 5 minutes, and it should set. So you get a nice golden bottom, and you'll have like a pale top that's just set. If it's not quite cooking on top and it's starting to get a bit dark on the bottom, you can flip them over. But I find when you flip them over, sometimes you lose that holy effect, because it seals them. So you need to be careful. But if you leave it for about 4 or 5 minutes, it should just slowly cook. So it is a little bit of a time consuming, a little bit here. If you've got a nice flat pan, you can do more than one at once. Mine's got a slight curve in it, so I like to do it in the middle, because if you start putting it around the outside, you get like a wonky crumpet. So if you put it in the middle, it's nice and even. So we're going to allow that to cook, and I'll leave that cooking. So you might start to see it starting to set around the edges and cook. So I'm just going to try and see if you can see this a bit better. So you can see the bubbles start to pop on the top and form the little holes. So it's starting to set slowly. You can see around the edges it's hopefully started to set. I'm just going to turn it down a bit because it's starting to get a bit hot as well, and it's starting to cook. So slowly it will start to cook and set on top as well. So you want a nice, you don't want it to be too, you don't want it brown on top, you just want it nice and pale. Okay, so the crumpet now starts to set around the outside. So I've just taken the tin away, and I'm just going to let it carry on. So you can see it's starting to cook around the outside. Just taking this little time in the middle a little bit. Just keep an eye on the temperature. We don't want it to get too coloured underneath. So just every now and again check. So you can see, try not to. We've got a little bit. It's getting a little bit dark there, so we're just going to be careful. Turn the temperature down, just to stop it from catching any more. It's a bit of trial and error with the first one, so check your temperature every now and again, and once you get into it, obviously your mix should, if you make a single mix, it'll make 6, so by the second one hopefully you get the temperature just right, and we'll get the cooking time about right. So it's just a bit of practice with the first one to see how it comes out. So about 4 or 5 minutes it's been cooking now. Again, just to check the temperature and that, and the time may vary slightly, but you can see it's just set on top, and then you've pretty much got your crumpet. Okay, so again, if you're still just a little bit wobbly on top, you can flip it over, but I think you lose all the holes in the bubble. But just check underneath, it's quite hot, so be careful. Probably gone a little bit dark, but this is my first one, so it's trial and error. So just have a practice. This one's ready. Pop it on a tray or on a board, and that's ready to be toasted afterwards. Repeat that with the rest of the mix, and you should get about 6 out of the mix, depending on how much you put in the tin, how big you're making them. But it's a lovely crumpet, ready to be toasted and butter on. I hope you enjoy making these crumpets. Really nice with just butter on. Toasted with butter. I like to do a few different things with them as well. I do like maybe a sliced ham, fried egg on top, a bit of like caramelised fig with some nice Lancashire cheese. It's quite nice. For the people that like them a bit sweet, obviously you can put your jam on there. My little guilty pleasure was peanut butter on them, so peanut butter on a crumpet. But if you want to make them a little, you could do like some peanut butter, some sliced banana, a bit of chocolate drizzled on over the top. Quite nice. Really, really versatile crumpets. But again, good old-fashioned crumpet, bit of butter, cup of tea with them, little snack. You can't go wrong with these. Really nice and light. Please do send your pictures in if you do try this. It would be great to see some people's attempt. I'm sure they'll be fantastic. So please enjoy this recipe, courtesy of Mr. Warburton. Have a go. Send the feedback in. Send us your photos in. Tell other people about these videos, and just enjoy. Okay, so take care. Stay safe, look forward to your photos, your product, and I'll look forward to giving you the next session. Okay, take care, bye.